It is the Pete Sousa Show, and we are up north, the North Texas headquarters of the Rogue Media Network. We're presented by Slovacics this morning, thanks to Crawford Austin Properties and all our good buddies. I'm getting set to fly out to Utah for a football game, but I got to fly back into Waco, and I got to grab my main man, Cam Stuart, as we bring him in, host of Locked On. This is when, again, the Rogue family has an embarrassment of riches here. I get to start off with you. Am I the first human being you've talked to outside of Scotty as far as this game is concerned? Last night's buzzer beater, Baylor St. John's from the Bahamas? I can't hear him.
Yeah, outside of text and YouTube, you are the first human being I have spoken to about it out loud.
I listened to your Locked On this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Can we hear okay? Is everybody good?
I got you.
Scotty Swingler making it happen. Cam, my voice is getting better.
You could have fooled me.
All right, Cam, don't be a dick.
Look, it's not your fault. It just sounds like you're struggling.
Okay, well, I'm doing my best.
I know you are, Pete.
So
I'm the you're better than me guy.
So last night, all right, truth serum from me, okay? I got up here. It was date night for Christy and I. I watched the early portion of the game. They were down 14. Cam's texting. I'm so sick of the tantrum over there has started. If anyone, lest anyone think that it's all calm, cool, and collected over there at Locked On Baylor Nation during the games, it's not, okay? And Cam was upset. They're playing like children. I'm sick of being baited by Baylor basketball. And then he goes silent. And then now I'm watching the second half on my phone at this restaurant, Tycoon, in Flower Mound, where, by the way, there's a guy playing violin walking across this like brick wall, like this partition in the restaurant. All bets are off.
And you're watching basketball on your phone.
And I turn it off because the game's over.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it on Locked On, 99.9% chance for the Johnnies to win.
Yeah, so Baylor lost that game like 3 or 4 times. And they deserved to lose it like 3 or 4 times. And then they just didn't lose. They're down 18. They are down 14 at the half. So automatically that should be a loss. Like the color guy comes on when they're coming back from break and he's like, oh, St. John's did all these things well and Baylor couldn't buy a basket and you're only down 14. I'm like, yeah, you're down 14 with 20 minutes left against a good team and a Hall of Fame coach. And then somehow Baylor comes back and really blew it. They should have won it in regulation. And then they should have won it in the first overtime. And then in the second OT, this is where it's got to be 99.9. They are down 5 with 8 seconds left. And somehow they win this ball game. It's incredible. They hit VJ, who was the worst offensive player on the floor probably last night, hits this crazy 3, keeps them in it. And then they get the foul. Kid misses 2 free throws, bang the other way, 3-pointer, game over. What about the craziest finishes I've ever seen?
Well, and as a fan, right? Like it really was the unthinkable. Like again, like going back to your Locked On, your headline was great. What just happened? And I think a signature win so far for Baylor. I think over the course of the past few years, really. And 2 things jumped out at me huge last night, and I want to see if you agree. Norchad Umir and Jeremy Roach, 2 guys who have Final Four experience, stepping up and playing amazing for Baylor. This is something that they didn't have the past few years.
Yep.
Like this wealth of experience and know-how and clutch gene. You mentioned VJ Edgecombe. That reminded me of last year. If you remember, I think it was in Brooklyn when Baylor was playing Florida, and Jacoby Walter just had a pretty bad game. And he sat, I think he was in foul trouble, and he was on the bench for most of it. And that was fine, but that was a window into, okay, we have a freshman. He's going to be temperamental. We can't count on him every night. And now you have these guys who you can count on every night, and you can let VJ get in where he fits in at times. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So I got this question on the Locked On Baylor postgame, which is something I was wondering during the game too. Part of the thing I told you about getting baited by Baylor basketball is like someone said, like, do they have like it's just a nice win tonight, but do they have that secret sauce where they can come away with multiple wins like this where they're not supposed to win? Because that's what championship teams do, right? And I said, look, I don't know, because it's November and I don't think we really find those things out till February, March, but they just showed it. Like, they just showed that they've got it for now. I mean, you just mentioned it. They brought in two guys in the transfer portal who have both played in the Final Four, who have played a lot of big basketball games. And Scott Drew was in this situation where I can't develop 3 years of chemistry in one off season, but I need to replace 4 starters. And so he goes out and he gets these guys who have played in big time games. Jeremy Roach has started like 100 games in his career. Okay, these guys have been through it. And again, have played in the Final Four and are all ACC talents. Your 2 leading scorers last night, Norchad Omier and Jeremy Roach. Your last play of the game, a Norchad Omier rebound off a missed free throw, pushing it up the court, and assist on the Jeremy Roach game-winning 3. Like, it's right there. It's there. This is why you went out and bought these guys. That's it right there. And I don't know if that carries over into March, but you now know that that's possible. Like, all the things we were saying in the offseason about trying to bring in that experience and that winning culture and that winning mentality through the transfer portal, it just showed itself last night. And again, a game that they should have lost.
Cam, what was your they should have lost it 3 times, like you said at the top. What was your most pleasant surprise? Something that you're watching that game. I mean, look, I give you a hard time, but everybody's kind of like, man, this is a kick in the nuts. They're down 14 at half. It's another ranked opponent, so you kind of get in your head about that, like, how good is Baylor? How good are they? What was your most pleasant surprise, though, throughout the course of that comeback?
Oh, that's a good question, Pete. The most pleasant surprise for me was probably that they didn't change a lot from the first half to the second half. And what I mean by that is, like, I was freaking out in the first half because I was like, these guys can't play man defense. This is exactly what we saw against Gonzaga. And it was the same thing of, like, St. John's is playing harder than them. They're taking the game to them. Baylor's not responding. And in the second half, they continued to play man defense, and they just, like, played more physical. It just felt like they woke up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they started being the aggressor. They started being the bully. And that's what really, I thought, turned this game around. And within that, Jalen Celestine, who we've talked about, has not had a great start to the season, but he's doing everything right. And the shots just weren't falling. The shots were falling in this game. And when Baylor was making the comeback, he fouls out in, I think, the first overtime. So he's not really there down the stretch, but he was coming up with big buckets when they needed it. And you look up and all of a sudden you see that they shot 52% from 3. Yeah. Which they were not going in early, terrible sight lines and all that. Both these teams shot over 50% from 3, and Celestine went 4 of 5 from beyond the arc. Those were big buckets to start gaining.
Wasn't Rob Wright? Like, what was Rob?
Rob Wright was absolutely getting you some big ones. He was 4 or 5 from 3 as well. And 17 points, and was really giving them something when they had nothing offensively. The thing that worries me is that Baylor did, win by 1 at the buzzer, right? But they had 21 more field goal attempts than St. John's. That worries me, and it doesn't worry me, because there were plenty of games last year where they were getting out-rebounded, and the other team was getting 20 more field goal attempts, which I think is worse. But when you get 21 more field goal attempts and you shoot 52% from 3, you probably should be winning that game comfortably.
You talk about field goal attempts, and a guy who made a lot of field goals was Norchad Omier. What skill set or what aspect of his skill set do you think is most beneficial to Baylor this year? I feel like he fills a lot of different holes for this roster.
Yeah, I think the fact that he could, like, pull a semi truck is the best thing about Norchad Omier. Like, I'm telling you, man, this grit, and it's all these intangible things: the grit, the muscle, that which they needed down low. They have not had it since really Mark Vital. God love Flo Thamba and Yves Misi and, Sohan before he started playing point guard and all these guys. But this is the muscle that they have needed for years now. And again, there's still times in these games where I'm like, can anyone, like everyone can box out Josh O. Like we need Norchad in there just bullying people. And he is a guy who, on the flip side, I think about the grit a lot defensively and rebounding wise, but you can throw the ball to him in the block and it's going to be 2 points 9 times out of 10 because he can out physical everybody down there. And so that not only opens up easy looks for him, but is going to open up easy looks on offensive rebounds. So I think it's really his muscle and what he could do on the block that is so key for him. I know he talks about how he can do a little bit more offensively, and he was testing out that range early. I'd like him to test out the range in practice, if we're being honest. He was taking some threes early. He's taken a couple this year. They do not go down. He has not hit one this year. But he was 9 of 18 from the floor and 0 of 3 from three. So that goes to tell you, I mean, he is an inside low post guy, a walking double-double. It took 40 minutes, a full 40 from him to get to 10 rebounds, but 24 and 10 and doing a lot of grunt work.
Well, where does Langston Love fit in for this team when he comes back? Like, was there any moment?
He played last night.
So how many minutes did he play? Again, see me on date night.
Yeah, 16, and I don't know how much he even played in the second half. It was a lot of first half minutes. He must have played some because he played 16 minutes. But
so what did he give the team?
Well, on the box score, you're going to see, and it didn't give him a lot in terms of scoring because he didn't score. He went 0 of 3. But you look also at 3 rebounds and 4 assists. And what I saw from him out there was he was the only one playing physically in the first half. And as you've called plenty of his games, that's what he gives you. He's a guard that can play almost like a small forward. Like you can roll a 4-guard lineup out there with Langston Love as one of them. So I thought he gave them some actual ball movement that you see in the 4 assists, but he was not a guy who was going to go ISO, which he doesn't do when he's fully healthy anyway. So he's a guy who can give them, so obviously switchability defensively, which they haven't had early in the season. And he is a ball mover. Remember Scott Drew used to say this about Dale Bonner. He's one of the best ball movers in the country. And it's like, what does that even mean? And what it really means is when your offense is going stagnant, he's going to do something. He's going to move around. He's going to find open guys. He's going to make sure that ball is popping out like Norman Dale likes to do. Pop it, potato. And
well, they used to say, right, Carmelo was a ball stopper, right? Like guys like that, like they don't help the flow of the offense a lot of times because when they're not doing well, it all stops. It ends with them. Yes,
and Langston Love is not that.
All right, a couple more things for you. I know you got to gear up for the Cam show, but I was super excited to talk to you today. How good was St. John's? Compare them to, I mean, they're not as good as Gonzaga. Mm-hmm. But comparing them to Arkansas, you were at that game at American Airlines. You obviously watched this one blow by blow. How good St. John's?
I think let's compare it to Arkansas, the other ranked game that Baylor won.
I think Arkansas was 22 and they played them as well, correct?
I think they were a little higher. I think they were 16.
Okay. So
Arkansas has more high-end talent, but I actually liked what I saw more from St. John's. They were playing with their hair on fire in that first half and really the first couple minutes of the second half. And even when things were going against them, I mean, we got to give some credit to St. John's here. Like, again, if we say Baylor should have lost this game a couple of times, that means they had it in the bag and St. John's was coming back. And they don't have the high-end talent that Arkansas has, but you can tell this is a buy-in from the Johnnies. Like they got some guys out of the portal. They got Kadari Richmond. They got Lewis last year, RJ Lewis.
Kadari Richmond. Now he played at the Farrell Center last year. He's a dog, dude.
Yes.
When he was at Seton Hall.
And he had a good game in that game, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he did.
And so I think there is a real like buy-in there and a care factor, as Dave Aranda likes to call it. I think this is a team that should be in the NCAA tournament, which they just narrowly missed out on last year. And all the pundits after the game were talking about it too. But they shoot 55% from the field and 58% from three. They should be winning that game. So to me, that says in a game in November that it's little things. And you can work on that. This is a talented team that works their ass off, which, the great Patino teams do. and they felt they got jobbed at the end. Pitino was calling it all unethical, which I find.
Well, yeah, what was that? So he said the stoppage of play was unethical because they iced his free throw shooter.
Yeah. All right.
Now, was that like a game of chess being played by Scott Drew and Rick Pitino, or what happened there?
I don't think so. So VJ hits the three. There's 7 seconds left. Baylor's going to foul.
Again, I'm at a restaurant. I'm watching some guy play violin on a brick wall. So I'm not watching this, which I apologize. That's why we're talking to Cam today, and I'm not telling you what happened.
So they inbound the ball to Ejiofor, and he gets fouled right away, as Baylor's trying to do. And immediately,
Baylor's up 2.
Scott's calling.
Baylor's down 2.
Yes, Baylor's down 2. I think Scott's calling for it, but the officials go to the monitor because there's a bit of an elbow there. Not enough for a foul, but they go and check it, and they say, okay, no foul. I don't know if they were checking the clock as well, which could well have been the case. We haven't really heard what was called for. Anyway, no foul. They go to the free throw line, so it takes a minute or two, and the kid misses both free throws, and Baylor comes down and scores. Now, my point about this was, first off, I mean, Rick Pitino calling anyone or anything unethical is hilarious to me. Like, that's too good, right? But second, it's like, how many times does that happen? Like, there's actually a problem in college basketball, how long the final minute of a game takes. Like, this happens all the time. They review everything.
Yeah.
Like, to think that this is here's how we're going to ice this kid from the free throw. I think that I just don't buy that.
All of a sudden, yeah, he's got this big issue.
Yeah, I just I'm like, really, Rick? Like, that's, and by the way, Pitino can have another gripe with the officiating or how the clock went at the end of this game that is much more legit than that. I didn't see this video until this morning, but they don't, like, the clock does not start for like at least a half a second after the ball is touched, because I think they're waiting for possession. It gets tipped around a little bit after the rebound and the missed free throw, and the clock should be running as soon as it's touched.
Yeah,
and you don't think they run
Welcome to the Bahamas, baby.
But like, yeah, I mean, that's obviously not on Baylor, but like, if you're going to complain about something, Rick, that's what you got to do. But he's complaining about that trip to the monitor in particular, which means not only is he going after the refs, that's a little backhanded at Scott Drew right there.
Well, I mean, that's my last question for you, because Scotty's giving me the high sign. We got to get you onto your show. But chess match, coach versus coach. Mm-hmm. Who won the battle last night? Was there a specific moment where you said, wow, that's a great job by Scott Drew against a legend like Pitino, or vice versa? Anything that stuck out?
It was a really good back and forth. I'm going to give it to Scott Drew, because I think not only did his team win the game, but just independent of this game, his team has made huge strides.
Hold on 1 second. Okay. I just gave a fist pump underneath the desk. Score one for the good guys. Scott Drew gets the victory. Yes.
Yeah, I did. Right? I took no joy in all those people from New York City having a heartbreaking loss. It's like the worst sports fans having a terrible loss. All those people with the Yankee hats and the St. John's shirts.
You're from Massachusetts.
Too bad.
Too Massachusetts. Bad. Like, we're talking about a guy, I think, what was it, BU, Providence,
yep.
Right? And then on to
the Final Four?
Providence in Final Four, dude. Like, with Delray Brooks.
Legendary with the Boston Celtics?
Yeah, and so legendary with the ball.
I've actually in the past, Pete, I have become a Rick Pitino Celtics defender.
Well,
in some ways,
it's
more a defender of the Celtics for going with Rick Pitino. Like, Rick really messed that thing up. I think he kind of had it going in a good direction towards the end, but. Like, if you're the Celtics, man, Pitino just did it at every level. He had a pretty good run with the Knicks. He had some good teams.
He took them to the playoffs.
He took Providence to the Final Four.
He was ahead of the curve with the threes with the Knicks. Like, that's all they did.
Yep. Went to the Final Four with Providence, won a national championship with Kentucky. At that time, where the Celtics were after that disastrous ML Carr season and losing on the Tim Duncan sweepstakes, I'm okay handing the keys to the castle to that guy. I'm really okay with that. Anyway, but yes, I think it was a Scott Drew coaching victory. And if nothing else, it came down to whose team was going to respond better down the stretch, because Baylor was missing all kinds of free throws. I was ready to go on just a rant about how this team has lost their season on free throws the last few years and how they're doing it again, and how can you not be good at that at this point? But Baylor gets the last laugh. Plenty of things to work on, but they did that play without a timeout as well, which I was screaming for a timeout. They didn't need it because they've got the veteran-laden players. So this is a win for Scott Drew.
All right, Cam Stewart, you can catch him later on today with my main man, Matt Mosley, the Cam Show, 11 a.m. Central Time on the Rogue Media Network. Cam, do yourself a favor. You don't have to bring him back, Scotty. Well, yeah, go ahead and Google You Dropped a Bomb on Me, New York Knicks, 1987. And you'll see the video to the You Dropped a Bomb on Me song by the Gap Band. And it's just guys like Trent Tucker just nailing threes for Patino's Knicks. You'll have a blast with it. That is a YouTube gem.
I will.
All right. Happy Friday, folks. Coming up next, Corey Dickman. We got your picks. Stay with us. The Pete Sousa Show. Thanks.